Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our discussion this evening. Our remote viewing target is 120926, the Tip Elizabeth Road Bridge, and that is located in Tip City, Ohio. The first images are provided by myself, and I would just like to clarify, too, that when I set these targets up in advance, like I choose them, several weeks ago, I do not have all this my logo and all this stuff up here. It's just target 120926 and the title of the target and the image and the text. I don't have all this extra gobbledygook. So anyway, Lynn Buchanan is with us and will be providing his wise commentary as always. We have 3 sessions turned in. Everybody has been extremely busy, but we're grateful to have 3 sessions to discuss, and thank you to Russ, Jed, and Janine for contributing those. The target this week did have a couple of points in mind. I had ulterior motives. Number 1, it was a command exercise, a movement in time opportunity. However, Jed, as you'll see in his session, didn't get the email with that post. And so he did a session and I retasked him, but he was not aware of the movement in time opportunity until we communicated back and forth with his session. He sent it in and I'm saying, I don't see the move command anyplace. And he's like, what move command? So anyway.
Can I speak to that for a minute?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
For some reason, everybody gets so afraid of front-loading because people don't know how to front-load. And they put pollution into what they call front-loading. Well, it's not. It's pollution. Front-loading is when you tell somebody where to put their work. And you give them instructions like, in this target, you will need to make time movements. Or you say, the target is an activity. Okay, well that keeps the person working on the activity instead of working on the location or whatever, and it keeps them on target. But there are billions and billions of activities, and so it doesn't tell them anything about the activity. It's not pollution. And people get so afraid of the big evil demon front-loading that they just refuse to take it. And front-loading that's given properly does not tell you anything about the target. It tells you where to put your work and how to work the session. And once you get into more complex targets, it becomes very necessary for you to actually look to see what you're supposed to do in this session. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox and keep going.
Well, so the front loading would have been the fact that in all the e-group posts that there is a move, sorry, this phone will quit in a minute. The move command in time was to move 60 years back in time and describe. And that was included in the e-group post just because I can't keep who wants front loading, who doesn't want front loading. Whoever wants to come out and hang out with us on Wednesday, this is what we're doing. And so I thought I would just put it in the e-group post, and Jed was not a member of the e-group, and so he wasn't aware that he could even be getting the post. So that's what that was all about. My sneaky motive was, we have a lot of people who work targets regularly and come every other Wednesday, and when you are a student of Lynn's in basic, you will sometimes receive the same target more than once in a row. And you work the session and you get your data, and then you get your feedback. And then you start working your next session and you think, man, this is an awful lot like the session I just worked. But now your head's kind of like, okay, and you keep setting aside your previous session stuff because you couldn't be working the same way. You wouldn't work the same target twice. And you get your feedback, and it's the same target. Okay, so then you get your next set of coordinates, it's your next session and your next practice session, and you're getting your perceptions, and you're writing them down, and you're thinking, man, okay, I know that there's always something new to be gained from going back and revisiting a site. You know, there's always more data. No big deal. This stuff's an awful lot like the session I just worked. So you set that aside, and you keep going, and then that little thought creeps in. There's no way. You know, he would not give me the same target again, would he? And you keep going, and you do your session, and you get your feedback, and he gave you the same target again. Alrighty then. Now you talk about tough. And so by then, you know, he does that 4 or 5 times, and you get through it, and you learn how to get through it, and it's just one of those things. So last week, our session was or 2 weeks ago, our target was a bridge. So I purposely chose another bridge target, and this target has a historical component to it. It's here in Miami County where I live, and as you can see this photo, there's a marker there. This is the current bridge on Tip Elizabeth Road, and here is the image of the truss bridge that was built in 1926. So we do have some photos here of and to review, when you first start taking coordinates, you're getting information and perceptions from all over the site. You're winking around the site. It's just like stepping off a bus and you're looking around going, oh, where am I? And you're making sure you're safe, not going to step off a cliff, and you think, oh, this is pretty interesting. You start just looking around. So this is the view from the street, and the markers on both sides, and there's stuff to the right and the left you're going to see, because this little group we seem to have coming regularly has a tendency to, they don't wander off, but they like to look around. So if anybody got canoes, over to the left there was a parking area, little pull-off place and a boat ramp, and here's a canoe rental just to the right of where I would have been standing in the road taking that picture. And the boat launch would have been like directly back behind. I know you can't see my cursor. And the road would be to the right. And circling on, then right behind that, if you're turning and turning and turning, the next behind this fence is a whole bunch of big old John Deere tractors. Green, very green. And I need to go back one, because there's one more picture. Then just across the road on the other side is a stadium and a big family aquatic center with the water slides and water park and all of that. So that's what's there currently. And then I was going to, if we had enough time, I didn't know how many sessions would be turned in. I thought this is a shot of street view. So I don't know if any of you are accustomed to using Street View for your target feedback to learn more about it, or if you're working, you know, something that you think is operational. I've had people doing that I've come across. But here are images that I retrieved from the Historical Bridge Society, and this is what it looked like before it was renovated. It's a truss bridge. And I don't think I have more than one picture per page. Yeah, I do. Yep, okay. So some of you, you know, might fixate on different areas, so I tried to just capture all these shots. And we have a fair amount of people who focus on biologicals, 1 or 2 who are mechanically inclined, and we'll go for that every time. Some shots of how it's supported there. I was hoping, you know, I had some pictures of vehicles on my camera and I forgot. I didn't get those. I don't think that anybody got them in session, so. And there's just some close-up of looking down at a support beam, and that's water around it and the cement structure. And then here's some facts about the bridge, which I could, it's always a little hard for people to try and read this. Some will say they can't read it at all, so I don't like to shrink it too much. But it's Tip City, Miami County, Ohio, been replaced, built in 1926, rehabilitated 1957. Pennsylvania Through Trust dimensions, and it's got, for any of you who are into doing measurements, and it just hit me. John, you're here, and you always do P6 tools. Did you send me a session? I know I'm staring at you here. Hi, John.
Hello.
Did you send a session?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. And this is not to put you on the spot, because if you sent me one, I'm going to go find it. Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
So this is the Pennsylvania Through Bridge in Miami County in Ohio.
Yep, that's the style. It's a Pennsylvania Through Truss Bridge.
But you've got Miami, Pennsylvania, and Ohio all in the same picture.
I can't help it. That's the style of bridge it is.
I think it's neat, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad you think it's neat.
By the way, just to put some people's mind at ease, the repeating the target, I do not ever do that with basic students, and I only do it with more advanced students when I think that they're using their imagination more than they're viewing, and that's when I do that, just to teach them that you cannot go with your imagination or with logic. You've got to just clear your mind and view the target. And that's the only time I do that. So, not to scare people here.
No, I mean, it's part of, I think it's good training. It's just, it's an identified thing that helps you learn.
Yeah.
And it's not mean at all.
Well, in the military unit, we weren't above doing a few mean things to the viewers.
Okay,
like meeting them at the coffee pot and before they go over, and telling them, oh, by the way, the target you're doing today is not the Eiffel Tower, so quick, don't think about the Eiffel Tower. And then let them go do a session.
Rotten, rotten, rotten.
It's actually good training.
Yeah, I hear you. That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll save Jed's stuff for last since he's not here. I'm looking over just in case he sneaked in. Here's Russ's PDF. I don't think I have any sketches from him this time, and I'll be looking over to see if you're texting anything in, Russ. And my nose is itching. I'm so sorry. Nice to know that we're human here. We're not bots. Go to the time the picture was taken, and this is his second session. So he tried to go back and work this target and get more information, and based on discovering more about one word, he retasked himself on fingerprints, and he chose that for some reason. And he wrote 1942 as known, so that's the year that he, I think, landed in when he did his move back in time, 60 years. So he has all sorts of identifiers here with dimensionals, and if I could see a sketch of this, it would probably be pretty interesting. I wish he would have sent. But rectangular with radiating outward diagonal lines and a low arch above this diagonal drawn is deep V with small oval at the tip. Let's see, and up above you've got lines, ray pattern. Got foreign flag on a diagonal setting. 1940s cars in rows, plain enamel colors, view of the back seat, and I don't have any building structures that were in this area before what is currently there. It's kind of amazing the conversations you guys pick up on. I don't have any doubts that, you know, they may really have existed. But here is a lot of his SPs. And it, let's see, all sorts of noises. He has a really good variety of sensories here. Sounds, smells, go ahead, colors.
Could you lean back just a little bit? You're getting very muffled.
Oh, sorry. He has a lot of dimensionals, sensories, colors, smells, sounds, motion, different motions, flippy, and pouring, falling. Go ahead, Lynn. Throwing up. Somebody's not happy.
Some people get sick going across a bridge, I know that, but this isn't exactly a big enough one to do that.
Yeah. Structural man-made, honeycomb, girded steel, submarine deep, many empty repeats. Steppy, which, you know, there's a lot of stuff here that an analyst, it would be good because an analyst could look at that and say, what does this mean to you? And for clarification, that's not a bad thing. He's picking up a lot of patterns. And a lot of ambiance and emotional. Don't underestimate, charm, ensure, impress, move, mystify. Oops, poison. Maybe somebody's needing to clean up the river. And then summary linking, the trans verb should tell this angle of the story behind the target, which, Russ, I wish you had a mic because you would have to explain that to us. And I'm looking over to see if he texts us anything. And I will continue to watch. And see if I can pull up Janine. There we go.
That had a lot of good descriptors in it. I mean,
it did.
Oh, yeah. You're definitely on target. Actually, from the very start of that session here.
Russ usually, for those of you who aren't here, you know, routinely, Russ's sessions are notebook pages packed full of sketches with so much writing of perceptions on them. It kind of, you almost need a little bit of seizure medicine because there is so much information packed onto one page. And now he's got it sorted out, and so he can report it to us. But he has been hitting targets very, very consistently. Nice work, Russ. I'm sorry we don't say that enough. And then Janine's, I think we've got 8 pages here, and I am going to go over them because she has some sketches. There's one thing I'd like to point out about when we are doing these practice sessions and retasking. I've learned, you know, from working with Lynn, that if you were really going after information, you need to pretty much expect that people are going to need to be retasked. I mean, it's my expectation, but I've never worked with, like, the guild people. So those viewers, maybe they hit it, you know, once or twice and they're done. But for us rookies, retasking more than once seems to be common, but we're not professional. We're
Well,
just practicing.
in
We're not
training,
in operations mode. We're in practice. Oh.
Yeah, in training, we will often retask you, whether it needs it or not, simply to...
oh, your turn.
Oh, my turn, I tell you. Simply to get you ready for operations, because in operations, many times you'll turn in the information to a customer. They'll turn around and come back and say, can you have the viewer tell me more about this one certain point? And so retasking is very, very, very common in operations. And so we do that in training and practice just to get you ready for it.
Well, over here in the texting area, Janine needs to text. She doesn't have a mic. She's already saying this was a total miss, and she has a frowny face. All right, now, I know.
Wailing cry of the plankton remote viewer, you know.
Yep, here we go.
I'm so terrible just because I made 98% correct. I mean.
Yeah. So, at first blush, you know, you are starting to wonder whether or not she did hit the target, but you remember you have to sort out each perception and ask yourself, you're not supposed to be identifying this, you're supposed to be describing it. So you're only supposed to use your summary, because that's where you've weeded out the good stuff from the bad, and what is the conscious mind pollution and the subconscious mind perception. But we are going to go down through this so that Janine understands that she did not have a bad session. Number one, there's a lot of stuff here that we can't confirm. It was a recreational activity, if you recall, and so just because I don't have confirmation about somebody wearing weird sunglasses, there's a water park there, there's a canoeing thing there, and they launch the canoes at the base of the bridge. And you're getting resort stuff. So it's like I'm picking up on a fair or something. There are large groups of people who rent these canoes, like 4-H clubs and Boy Scout troops, Audubon Society, who go up the river and look for cranes, you know, herons. So anyway, I don't want you to think that you had a bad session just because we can't go at a girl and go, yes. Some of this stuff would be question marks. Also, Jed got planes. I don't know about Russ, but I just want you to know that 2 of you got airplanes. And then somebody you found is wearing something large and clunky around their neck. Well, I can't confirm that for you. And the target is the target. Describe the target. And then you've picked up on a conversation. Doctors won't let me come again without a driver. And NASA, so there's a sketch here that it almost looks familiar to me. I'm wondering if it's on like a sign or something there that I can't remember, but I can't confirm it. You've got all kinds of people stuff. You've got long hair, a gray-haired woman in a long car. Long cars aren't necessarily the norm now, but they definitely were several years ago, even though now below that, you've got your move 70 years back in time and describe. And you've got Empire State Building, smaller structures around it, lower to the ground, and a launch pad with a wing structure. Again, I don't have any idea what was around that area then. You're picking up stuff like an auditorium. And people are dressed up wearing suits. Then long, low structure, white or light colored with a flat roof and a parking lot. I almost, and I can't do this. I can't say and waffle for you, but I was almost wondering if whether or not you were you were identifying a building, and only you would be able to say that. Oh, I think I was sightseeing somewhere else on the planet. Oh, I see that.
Okay.
Russ is saying first session I got flying. Go ahead.
Let me point out something here.
Yeah.
She's drawn a sketch of a building, right?
Yeah.
And so in her mind, it's obviously a building of some kind.
Right.
But look at the descriptors. Long, low structure.
Uh-huh.
Okay. White or light,
Right.
Flat roof, parking lot nearby. Okay.
Yep.
Your subconscious mind is going to tell you, go ahead and imagine whatever you want. I'm going to give you those descriptors that's common to what you're picturing in your mind and the real target. Each one of those things is exactly a good descriptor of the bridge.
Look right there. Look at that bridge. It's not a building, no, but it has a flat top, etc., etc. It's by a parking lot.
And this is one of the beautiful things about the remote viewing. Even when you're off, your subconscious just tries its little heart out to give you the correct information about the target. And so many times a remote viewer will see the feedback and say, oh, that wasn't what I was getting, and it wasn't what they were seeing or consciously thinking the target was, and yet you go through and you look at their descriptors and they have described the target to a T. And this is what I say, one of the plaintive cries of the remote viewer is when they look at the feedback and say, oh, I messed up, I screwed this up, I'm no good, I'm pig slop, I'm dirt, and yet you look at the descriptors,
get rid of the nouns,
yeah, get rid of the nouns, look at the descriptors, and they will have described the target. Your subconscious mind is a whole lot smarter than you are, and it finds a way to work its way through.
Then we have move back to original target at current time and describe. A small flower shop open, somebody getting flowers like violets, let's see. Let's see, black-coated figures in uniform spread out, moving down a street in front of others in a triangle formation. That area, they do have band contests. There was a band contest going on that day. I'm just talking out loud here. Oh, jeez Louise. Now I've got my kid on the phone. And not sure why everybody's going down the street. Let's see. And then her next page. Let's see, you've got inside a file room with a vault and some sort of metallic files or boxes. Well, there's a whole lot of metal in that bridge. And then she's drawing something that, to her, looks like a desk, and it's got a vase of flowers on it. And then there's somebody who's having a conversation there. And let's see, desk-like furniture with a vase. And so then we've got children. And then she's asking herself, what do these two sites have in common? And she includes the flowers. Then in her summary, we've got that it has a strong odor, a burning smell that's not organic, but it's more like wires or chemicals burning. So she's picked up on a lot of sensories. An impression of a small plane, and it looked to be somewhat older, and several biologicals, and she's got descriptions of those. Something really clunky around their neck, like large metals on a ribbon or a supersized necklace. And a cylinder containing or holding some kind of liquid. I think there might be barrels there. We can review those pictures and check that. Got land and water and biologicals and some weird sunglasses and a notebook, which, there are people who, there are benches there, and people go there to sketch and read. There have been people there taking photos of the flora and fauna as well, naturalists. And let's see, she's got some kind of a logo that looked like to her the planet like Saturn with a ring. Then we've got the Target in current time with small flower shop, and there is that commerce area with the canoes. And let's see, file room with tall rows of some type of metallic boxes or files in a closed area, destroying something of significance. I don't know about a file room or a vault. We had tall rows of stacked up metal canoes, but
okay,
I don't
wait
know.
a minute.
I don't know about any of the others.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Can you go back one page
I can.
to that very part right there?
One page or session or
No.
summary?
The page where it was handwritten, the last page before this one.
Okay. Going.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Inside a file room or vault with tall rows of some sort of metallic files or boxes, closed area, okay? Dump the nouns out of that. Inside tall rows, okay, metallic, boxy, closed area. See how all of a sudden once you dump the nouns, you've got a good descriptor of the target?
Okay.
Nouns are your worst enemy in remote viewing. And in the summary there, if you go through that typewritten summary and you kick out all the nouns, you're going to find that you really had a good session.
See, I told ya. She thought she was pig slop.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I give myself that mantra every now and then. I see the feedback and, oh, I missed it. I'm no good, you know. That never goes away.
And perceived what might have been a launch pad. It's a big, flat parking lot area in a square.
Okay, get rid of the parking lot. There is a parking lot there, but get rid of that.
Yep.
Large, flat area, square.
Yep.
See how you got the descriptors? Correct. When you start imagining and trying to identify what it is, that's where you're going to mess up. Dump the nouns.
And then perceived a long, low building that was white or light colored with a flat roof and some cement or pavement around it. Sound familiar? If you dump the building.
Yep.
Trying to ascertain what these two temporal sites had in common and perceived large sprays as flower arrangements. She thinks that her subby has an interesting sense of humor.
Could be. But I like the way she got the logos and pictured them as Saturn, you know, a picture of Saturn.
Yeah, which logo? Did you see one someplace?
Oh yeah, look on the roadside marker, see?
Okay.
Right there at the top?
Yep. Because it's like, I think I've seen that someplace, but I was wondering if it was maybe, you know, also part of the canoe things, or it could be on an old car too.
Well,
anyway.
It gets awfully close to wobbling there.
Yeah. So anyway, I was wondering if they were there somewhere. So, I
hate to say this, but I've had this happen before too. See the picture that's up on your screen right now? Look up in the upper left-hand corner of that picture.
Yeah.
I I gave a target one time over the internet, and it was an Indian pueblo, and there was this stone oven out there where they were making their pueblo bread, and I wanted them to describe the stone oven, and so I drew a big arrow pointing to it on the feedback. I don't know how many of the viewers described an arrow.
Yeah, I believe it. And there's no, and I got undershots and everything of this thing just because you guys you're a nosy bunch. Very good viewers. Russ has got that he had a triangle formation also, and Tamara's I think that while I'm doing this, I'm going to mumble out. Now that this is my last, what I would call tutorial, I'm just going to be scheduling here webinars with target practice and trying to get what we have up on YouTube or someplace that people can get to it. So, Lynn, now that people have had the opportunity to move in time and see how well they do with that and learn that they all have things that interest them, and when they get site contact, they're apt to go and investigate what is of interest to them, because we have not nailed their toes to that feedback image per se like some training camps do. I did not. Like if you don't describe that bridge right there, you get an F, period.
Yeah.
So now I would like to start, and how I'm going to incorporate this through the post without a whole bunch of pollution. I may have to make separate posts as I put these up for people as exercises, but how do you think we can work with the community insofar as if we actually wanted them to view just the structure, and you know, we still want conceptuals and what have you, but we don't necessarily want the canoes or whatever. It's still the customer's going to know that stuff. Here, Jed's getting a helicopter. You know, what are your thoughts as I'm doing this and talking out loud about trying to get people to, instead of viewing a whole bunch of site contact stuff, start reining them in a little bit? And
okay.
This is an example of Jed rubber banding. He enlarges everything on his P3 sketch.
My first thoughts about it is that you're giving the today's coordinates to this target.
Yeah.
That means that you're giving a Wednesday date to this target.
Yeah.
And so, for one thing, I cannot give the same coordinates on the target of the week because that's every Wednesday.
Right.
And so, basically, I hate to say this with everybody listening, but this is going to wind up being this week's target of the week, just like each one of these where you're giving the target.
Right. Right.
Of course, by the time I get them all up, you will have forgotten all about this anyway, but, you know, about this target.
Well, I asked you about this, and you told me to go ahead.
You bet, yeah, and that's good. I mean, you know, 3 people did this session. This is still a great target for everybody to put out to the public, and so for those 3 people, they will have already done this target. But what we're going to do, we're revising the website. People do not understand about front-loading, and they almost run screaming down the street when you even say the word front-loading, because front-loading seems to be a 4-letter word. And so instead of the front-loading that I give on targets of the week, I'm going to have a section that says guidance, where your task for this session is, if you're a basic student, you know, if you're at the intermediate level, if you're at the advanced level, if you're at the professional level, and so on, and just have it right there so that it comes up, so that a person sees what they're supposed to do in that target. If it's one where the target time spans 3 days, they need to know about that before they just blindly take the coordinates and describe a location and quit, you know. And so my first thought about this is that this is going to make a great target of the week, and that I will give on this the instructions that you have given, because they're good instructions of, once you get the target, move back 60 years in time and describe. And you know, I think everybody knows this. I sound like a stuck record on this, but moving in time in CRV is no different than moving in space. And just like you say, okay, move 50 feet forward, now what are you seeing? You would say, move back 60 years, and present tense, you would say, now what are you seeing? You wouldn't say, what was the target like, or describe it as it was back then. You would move your mind back, and then in present time you would say, okay, you're now 60 years back in time, now what are you seeing? And so the targets you've been picking and the instructions you've been giving have been great. And so basically my first thought is, hey, you've done the work for me on these targets of the week. I thank you for it.
Well, you're welcome. As these folks don't know, I was a little nervous about that, because you and I have established that your Wednesday nights were usually, you weren't on the radio and you didn't have other groups, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was a little nervous about choosing targets that weren't on your website. But I wanted to try my own hand at a few things with exercises, and that we could try. But
that's good. You're picking good targets.
So from now on,
this one, well, on this one for the professional level students, I'll get on the internet and I'll look up the exact dimensions of the bridges and all that, because they'll be doing timelines and measurements and all that. The advanced students will, but you know, the basic students don't need to bother with that. But for the advanced students, I'm going to have that information as feedback.
Well, I can send you this Word document, because it has some on there already.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Also, there is a site that talks about the structure of bridges. I've included that in the citations below. But so if viewers want to not be wobbly in time, I almost considered starting to put this in posts. If they want to view the target at the time that the feedback image is taken, I think it would help some of them, because they have a tendency to not be disciplining themselves, and they're just like Deborah, and I'm not picking on her. She's going to try and come, but she's on jury duty today, and she couldn't make it.
Yeah.
she admitted that she learned about herself last week with the schoolhouse target, that there was a bridge just up the road a few hundred yards, and it was very unsafe. She thought the school was pretty boring. She took one look at it and thought, "Geez, I'm going to blow this. I'm out of here." And she went up the road and took a look at the bridge, which was very unsafe, and described it, I think, probably very accurately.
Oh, yeah.
So how would we try to teach folks that they need to, boring that it is, they need to stick with the target that is given to them in that feedback photo? Can you talk to me about that?
Yep. First of all, you let them get the experience, training if possible, but the experience of just developing their remote viewing skills.
And that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, and then you get more demanding about it. You know.
Right, and that's where I'd like to go next. We've been doing this for several months.
Well, I know one of the first targets I did was I totally accurately described a doorknob that was on the front porch of the house. Mm-hmm. And I remember Skip Atwater telling me, you got 100% accurate session, but the target was the house, not the doorknob, and so I got a 0 for it. And something like that lets me know, hey, you're a good remote viewer. Now comes the discipline part.
Right.
And so that's what you do. You just gain experience and you learn. There is no way to make a viewer ignore that which is interesting and go to that which is boring. You just one, realize that you know, even if they're describing something interesting, that every now and then you say, okay, move to the target and describe. And if that pulls you off the interesting thing, then as a viewer, you know what you've done. You've gone off target to a more interesting thing. And it's a standard cue. Move to the target and describe. You give yourself that 4 or 5 times during the session. And if you continue describing the same thing, well, it means you're probably on the target. If all of a sudden, after that cue, you start describing something different, it means, you know, that you've been drawn away by an attractor. Also, the thing is that many times, especially in operations, you will be tasked with a certain thing, and yet you will be drawn to something of very extreme interest to you that's off target, and you'll come to find out that the thing that is of interest to you is also interesting to the customer, and the customer sees that information and says, oh, damn, I need to know more about that because that's important. Yeah. And so many times being drawn to something that attracts your attention is a good thing. So you don't always want to squelch that, you know.
You know, that's why I include the things that were around the bridge, just because a customer would know that of all the bridges, there's a canoe shop next to it, or, you know, the water. So it's like a fine line in giving too much information, because people will yell at you for that. You gave them more than just the bridge. So you encourage them to go off target and explore. But yet in real life, it's more than just the picture. There's a real community or a real piece of real estate with activities and life that goes on there. This is one of the reasons why the target of the week, everybody thinks they're too complex a target, but what you'll find is that viewers will be attracted to other things around the target, and I have to have feedback for that. And so, like on this one, I'll probably want a map of the area, because advanced and professional level students will probably wind up drawing a map of the entire area.
And this is one of the things. Your target is not the feedback picture. Your target is the actual site, the actual location.
So, at least I didn't find as many dogs hanging out in his session. Ever since he did that Iditarod, I've been telling him to set aside his previous sessions because those dogs are following him everywhere. Dogs are pretty common. Granted, there are dogs a lot of places in the world, but they're showing up in his session constantly. And here we've got, there's a biological, it's reading old legal documents. And like I said, sometimes the conversations you guys pick up on are quite interesting and not necessarily good. And other things he found at the site were a sense of pride and slow-going stagnation, concern for the future. So that being that.
That may be true, but you can't feed back.
The only thing is they did rebuild that bridge in 1957. Or they whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where'd that go? However they worded it. And there is a map of the area included on the internet.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it's all, where'd that go? Rehabilitated in 1957. So I don't know if that would be applicable or a question mark. And bridge design, there's a link for that. So I don't know if you'll remember that by the time you get around to putting this up on the target of the week.
Well, I've got to get a lot of these targets from you.
Okay.
I hope you're keeping the documentation on them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope I am too. I thought about that kind of late. Then there was one thing that I was going to do just for this exercise, which was to include, if I can just find it, there's a link here, a demonstration of Google Street Map for people. And I ended up adding these images. These are on my phone. And there we go. Let's see if oh great, it won't let me copy the paste. Let's see. Alright, I might have to take the long way around here, but I can do this. I have the technology.
I'll tell you, while you're doing that.
You go ahead and do your thing. I'm gonna have to wander off for a minute here.
I just wanted to tell you that I've been very impressed with the work that the people are doing for the targets you've been putting up. For one thing, you're selecting good targets. You're selecting them in order to let people practice the different aspects of remote viewing, and they're all living up to the challenge. And I'm just, personally, I'm wowed by the whole thing that you're doing here, and I really like the fact that you're doing it.
Thank you.
And I like the fact that they're doing such good work, too. Seen some really, really good sessions on the targets that you've been having here on Wednesday nights.
Thank you. I tried to put some thought into the exercises and what we can do to teach, and not just randomly, just work a target. I tried to actually bring out pieces of methodology that people would find in the multitasking here, walking two guns at the same time.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed about the other people who are doing targets and putting them up on the web and all, there'll just be a static picture and you're supposed to describe the picture. Well, that's fine in practice or in trying to prove that remote viewing works. But when it comes to where you're getting to be a actual viewer, actually doing some good work for somebody, that's pretty useless at that level. And so I've been very impressed by the fact that the people here are describing the targets, the target site, not just the feedback picture. It's been very impressive. Actually, y'all are doing work that I don't know if you realize it or not, but it's way far more useful and actually more professional than what I've seen on most of the internet.
And this is not too far from my house. So there you go. There's if you aren't accustomed to using Street View, it's quite a handy little tool. There you can see there's the picture with the John Deere tractors, and there's a city back there behind. So that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to touch base with you about how moving forward in posts on like the Stargate and Irva list community-wide, how we could try and get people to start, there's a lot of naysaying about site contact versus, just viewing that picture. So I didn't know if maybe I should make some comment about viewing the target at the time the feedback photo was taken with the post.
Well, so, you could, but do you know the rule for for the time at the target that the viewer will automatically default to?
I think it's the time of the feedback photo.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
If there is no feedback and no attractors, temporal attractors is what they're called, time attractors.
Right.
If there's not one, a viewer defaults to viewing the target at the present time. Now, if the feedback picture was taken like, 20 years ago or something like that, it will become a temporal attractor, and they will automatically go to the time of the feedback picture, unless there is a stronger attractor, such as, let's say the feedback picture is Pearl Harbor the Friday afternoon before the attack. Okay, they would, given no attack, they would go back to that Friday afternoon automatically. But there's a stronger temporal attractor that is going to attract them away from Friday over to the Sunday when the attack happened. Okay? So temporal attractors act just like any other attractor. The house was boring, the bridge was exciting, and so it worked as an attractor to pull you away. Temporal attractors are the same way. If there's a strong temporal attractor at a target, such as 9/11, anything like that, that's going to draw you away from the assigned target to the most interesting time. And if there's more than one temporal attractor at a target, then what will happen is you'll tend to be drawn to the strongest temporal attractor. And that's sounds like a Russian grammar rule there, but I think it shows you that in research, it's most important that you view the feedback picture, because that's all they can judge you on, and they're trying to prove that remote viewing works. In training and practice, we start out training at the basic level and have you just remote view the feedback picture, because all we're trying to do is teach you how to remote view. But then as you get more and more advanced and as you learn how to remote view, then we switch you over to going to the target instead of the feedback picture, and we start requiring things that are not going to be in the feedback picture. And then once you get into operations, listen, there may never be a feedback picture. In fact, you may never get feedback. So at that time, you really have to know how to go to the target. And it's a progression. It's a slow progression that every remote viewer has to learn. But when you get on the internet and people say it's not remote viewing without feedback, that's because they're listening to the researchers only, and they're not listening to anybody who's ever worked a real operation. So take it with a grain of salt.
By the way, thank you. Russ says, I think there's exposed bedrock there someplace. I tried using chemical elements as an extra tool, didn't fly. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it made sense to him.
Very good. Yeah. This is, of course, postgraduate stuff, but you can develop a scenario where you drop acid on part of a target and see how it reacts. Just like in the basic course you learn, stick your tongue up to it, how does it taste, kick it, what does it sound like, drop acid on it, what happens? Nothing. It's plastic, or it starts boiling up, because it's metal or something like that. And so this is a simple action cue that works. And well, like anytime there's a landscape and we're looking for a missing child or something, one thing that I do is mentally I get to the target, I pick up a rock and taste it, because I've been rock hunting for years and years and years, and I can tell what kind of rock a rock is by tasting it. And so in a session, when I'm looking for a missing child or something, I'll pick up a rock and taste it, and I'll say, oh, this is, there's iron ore. There's an iron deposit here. Or this is a cryptocrystalline quartz, or this is a, the different kinds of rocks. And so what he did was very good. It's a great tool. It's a very advanced tool, and it works. Just because you think it didn't work that time, don't give up on it. It's a tremendous tool.
Russ has another question I'll get to in just a second, I promise, but I just misspoke. I said that tonight was the last tutorial. This is a target discussion. There is one more tutorial on tasking coming up, and after that I hope to be all of the little components that could be found with methodology that I thought would be helpful to the community that could be found in the 7th sense. I think I've covered what I wanted to do. But one thing I wanted to ask you is in regards to, and I've been saving these comments because I didn't want to give away future targets or put things in people's minds or whatever, but like we just did the schoolhouse target a couple of weeks ago. I was hoping with both of these to see somebody actually drawing a bridge, or see somebody actually drawing the schoolhouse and the structures. And not identifying them as such, but I'm seeing very little of that, and granted, they weren't retasked for the most part for more detail.
Well,
but,
you saw that desk, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the 2 pylons with the thing going across the top.
Yeah. So, and I hate to say as my defense, But, you know, when this comes up in discussion that, you know, you didn't get the target, nobody drew the school, you know, is there a little bit of defense in that we view in teams for reasons, so nobody who was strong in structures worked that target. So, you know, is that so bad?
No, because
nobody drew the school and they described all this other stuff about the school, you know.
Well,
is that so bad?
No, because they got the target. They got sight contact.
Okay,
and,
good.
You know, just
this
to be,
is my years of you telling
just to
me
be honest about it, the schoolhouse was boring. It really was.
Thank you so much. You know,
I'm sorry.
but the location offered rich opportunities.
Right. And people started describing the location.
Yep, and that was my hope. I also kind of hoped somebody had sketched the building. It was kind of big, you know, but anyway. So there's always going to be that group that said they didn't get it, even though they don't understand that they made sight contact. So I guess it's still going to be our job to get them to understand sight contact.
Right, and you know, once you make sight contact, all you have to do from that point on is just look around you and describe what you perceive. I mean, once you make the sight contact, once you have that AI and you've made the sight contact, remote viewing is easy from there. It really is. From there, all the columns and all of the everything else is just a place to write what you're seeing. That's all it is.
Then Russ has a question. Is anyone doing triangulation with targets for location? And he emailed me after his first session and wanted to do an exercise with this, but he needed information, or at least he was asking me questions about the buildings or whatever in the area, and I wouldn't give it to him because we had people, I would not leak it. And I don't know if he realized that that's what he was asking for, but anyway, so is anyone doing triangulation with targets for location? Is he meaning like mapping and dowsing? Is that a...
Yes.
You want to speak to that question then?
Well, first of all, that's generally stage 6 work. It's more advanced, and so, you know, if you're just learning, or you're a beginner or even intermediate, we generally don't require that of you. There are some tools, some postgraduate tools that you can use. Say to yourself, I'm going to give you this one, and you can play with it, but it takes practice and experience, okay? Say to yourself, move quarter of a mile away from the target and describe your new location. Okay, you describe the new location, and then you say face north, okay? And then you can say the target is in front of me, or off to my right, off to my left, or behind me, and in doing that you can sort of get the directions at the target. Another way to do it is to do that twice, and this is the old Pat Price method. Pat would sit into a swivel chair at one police precinct, and he would slowly turn in the chair and turn in the chair and turn in the chair, and finally he would come to rest and he would say, the criminal is in that direction, and he would point, and they would draw a line on the map from their precinct off in that direction. He'd go over to another precinct, he'd turn around and around and around, and he'd say, the criminal's off in that direction. They'd draw that line, and wherever the lines crossed, generally they would go out and there would be the criminal. You can do the same thing by mentally going to 2 different locations. You can say, okay, face north. Now, the target is off in this direction, and you draw that on a map or something. Then you mentally move to the left 500 feet or half a mile or whatever, and now find out where it is, and you can triangulate that way. If you're doing dowsing, you put the pendulum at one corner of the map and say swing in the direction of the target, then put it at another corner of the map and say now swing in the direction of the target. You can triangulate that way. There are all different kinds of tools that will let you triangulate, and try them, play with them. It's good stuff. It takes a lot of work and a lot of practice to get highly accurate at it, but it's neat. It's neat to play with. So you know, it makes it fun. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's doing the triangulation or not, but it's a way to find out added information about the target. Go for it.
Anybody else have any questions? Russell's thanking you. Hope we do triangulation, he says. Oh, geez. I think he's hinting for a webinar on triangulation and mapping. Oh, geez. And P6 tools. It's true, we didn't cover that. Maybe someday.
I wouldn't rush to, well, let me tell you, almost all of the P6 tools are advanced ideograms. And if you practice your ideograms when you get up to the advanced level and you're starting to use all of these demographic and geographic tools and all that, you're going to have an easy time with it. If you don't practice your ideograms when you get up to the stage 6 level and start using those complex tools, you're going to have a hard time with it. Practice your ideograms. You'll be glad you did. Really will.
Okay, it is 9:17, and I'm just sort of looking to see if anyone else has any questions. You want to put out, Lynn, do you have anything, doesn't have to be about this target, that you'd like to address or bring forth?
Well, no, like I say, the main thing for me is that you're doing this and you're doing a great job of it, and I think you're helping people. I just wish that more people would take advantage of what you're doing here.
Well, actually, they're downloading, they're listening. That's why we're recording. People are really listening to the tapes.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're doing that too.
They may not be professional, but I threw caution to the wind with that and thought, okay, if I have to worry about all of that, it'll never get done.
Yeah.
So, just the person who has signed up to, we're going to start basic next week. She's the kind of person that makes it all worthwhile for me. She's had questions her whole life. She has a lot of answers. But I said, these folks actually have a concrete, hands-on application where you can see some results, and you might go to bed with a couple less questions every now and then. So I'm really looking forward. To me, that is a very big reward for doing this.
Yeah.
Russ is, any cure for unlocking complex geometry in ideograms?
Cover your ears, children.
Uh-oh.
He's about to say the P word.
Oh, okay.
Practice.
Like this bridge, complex geometry.
Yeah. You can get into what's called pictograms, and many times, especially in stage 3, if you're doing the CRV, your pictograms will become ideograms as well, and you can you'll be drawing a picture of the target, and you know, you'll be getting impressions off of it because it will also be an ideogram. Now, in stage 1, you might want to get a symbolic thing for a bridge or something like that, but actually you want to stay with gestalts in stage 1, so you don't want to get ideograms for nouns. You want to say, I don't know what this is, but it has the gestalt of something that provides a way across a way that you can't normally get. Okay, so that's a bridge, that's a ladder, that's being shot out of a cannon, you know, whatever. And so you want to stick with gestalts. In stage 3, then you can start drawing the ideograms that are also pictograms, and that's where you start getting your noun-like ideograms. But for stage 1, phase 1, I wouldn't go into the ideograms that try to identify what the target is. It will lead you off. It will lead you off target. It'll get the stray cats and the AOLs started, and it generally is a very bad thing to do.
You're welcome. Okay, well, in that case, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for this evening. Thanks everybody for coming. We have more target discussion scheduled. There's a tasking tutorial scheduled, and we're moving into October already. And all I can say is just keep coming to the WebEx site and seeing what's coming up. And if we have target exercises, I will try to, you know, spell them out without polluting you and give you opportunities to practice parts of the methodology. Okay? And if you have any ideas of things you want to try, you know, feel free to send them to me, and I'll see if I can incorporate that kind of exercise into a target. So.
And okay. if I can make a plug here.
Yeah.
If anybody finds a target that's, one, interesting, not pictorially interesting, but
I have my dog looking out the doggy door in the garage.
Yeah, or a cat laying on the couch. Yeah, I know. But that has a good number of gestalts, a good number of sensories like colors, smells, taste, textures, and all that, a good number of good describable dimensions like sizes, shapes, squares, triangles, big, small, things like that, and purpose, and also has information like, you know, the size of the bridge and the date it was made and things like that for the professional level people to practice. If you can find a target like that, please send it to me. I'm now 40 targets behind. I've got, I think, 60 targets to put up onto the web, trying to catch up on targets of the week, but I need help. It generally takes me about 4 to 5 hours to find and program a target that's going to be suitable for all levels of remote viewing. And so if you can help, I'll certainly be glad and give you credit in the target and all that. So help, I need help.
Well, if you're only 40 behind, I mean, compared to, you were a couple years behind there for a while.
Yeah, yeah, and once I learned how to do a MySQL database, I've got all these others that are already uploaded to the site but are not linked into the database, so they're not on the calendar. Yeah. And I've got to learn how to work a MySQL database to get the tasking or the guidance into the database, so it will start recognizing that those targets are there and start showing them to you, making them available.
We have run into a stone wall with the registry database, and all I wanted to do was data, it keeps overwriting. And so I think we're going to have to go live with that just in spreadsheet form. The same information will be there. And then hopefully we can import those Excel spreadsheets into the database once we figure out the overwriting problem. So anyway, I can empathize with you on this database stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, well, thanks everybody, and with that, good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy. Sweet dreams, everybody.
You too. Tell
And
Linda we said hi.
Okay.